In the year 2194, Earth had changed. Humans were no longer alone in the universe. Aliens from distant stars now walked among them, but even in peace, not everyone was accepted. She was called Mira. Her skin was smooth and silver, her eyes glowing like moonlight. She came from a planet called Sirea, where people spoke with thoughts and healed with light. Mira wasn't loud or strong, she was calm, quiet, and kind. She lived in New Geneva, a human city built after the Great Galactic War. Every day, she worked in a hospital, using her knowledge to heal wounds that human doctors couldn't. But no one said thank you. No one smiled at her. Some avoided her completely. Others whispered behind her back. She doesn't belong here, they would say. She's not even human. Mira didn't fight back. She stayed silent, but inside she felt something break, little by little. Every time she saw children playing in the park, her heart ached. Her kind could not have children anymore. A virus had taken that gift from her species long ago. She had dreamed of being a mother, holding a child close, hearing it laugh. But humans said things that hurt worse than any virus. "You aliens aren't meant to raise children," one woman told her once. "Why would anyone want to be part of your family?" said another. So Mira stayed alone. She lived in a small room above the hospital, filled with soft lights and quiet music. She kept old pictures of her world, of her family, now lost in the war. She watched the Earth's sky each night and thought, maybe it's time to go. One evening, she packed a small bag. No one noticed. No one stopped her. She walked to the spaceport, slow and tired, her silver coat flowing behind her like a shadow. As she reached the gate, ready to leave Earth forever, a voice called out. "Wait!" Mira turned. A human man stood there holding a broken toolbox. He looked rough, oil on his jacket, scars on his hands, tired eyes, but there was something warm in his voice. "My name's Jonah," he said, walking closer. "I've seen you. You help people every day, but no one helps you." Mira looked down. "I don't belong here," she whispered. "I came to give, but they don't want anything from me." Jonah sat on a bench nearby and motioned for her to sit. "You know, my wife died 5 years ago," he said, his voice soft. "She couldn't have children either. We tried everything. People told us the same things they tell you." Mira sat down slowly, her bag on her lap. Jonah continued. "But I learned something important. Family isn't always about blood, it's about choice." He looked at her, eyes steady. "You don't need to be like us to be family." Mira didn't speak. For the first time in years, someone had seen her, not as an alien, not as a problem, but as a person. A small light sparked inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "What do you want from me?" she asked carefully. Jonah smiled. "Nothing," he said, "just maybe don't leave tonight." He stood up and walked away, toolbox in hand. "I'll be working at the old space dock tomorrow," he added, "if you ever want to talk." Mira sat alone for a long time. The stars above twinkled like the memories of her home. She looked at the gate, then at the sky, then back at the path Jonah had taken. Her hand slowly let go of the bag's handle. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't time to leave. Maybe it was time to begin. Mira didn't go back to the spaceport the next day. She didn't unpack her bag either. She just sat near the window of her small room, watching the clouds move slowly across the sky. And for the first time in many months, she was not thinking about leaving. She was thinking about him. Jonah, a human with broken hands and kind eyes. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't stare at her like the others. He just sat beside her like it was the most normal thing in the world. And he said something she kept hearing again and again in her mind. "You don't need to be like us to be family." She didn't understand why those words felt like medicine. Maybe it was because no one had ever spoken to her that way. Not on Earth, not in years. The next day, Mira left her room and walked through the busy streets. People still looked at her the same way, cold, curious, afraid, but something was different inside her now. She wasn't walking to escape, she was walking to find someone. The old space dock was quiet. A few broken ships lay in the sun, metal shining under dust. She saw him, Jonah, standing with a welding tool, sparks flying as he worked on an engine that had clearly seen better days. He didn't notice her at first. Then he turned, wiped his forehead, and smiled. "I thought maybe you'd come," he said, like they had known each other longer than just one conversation. Mira didn't smile, but she stepped closer. Why did you speak to me? She asked simply. Jonah sat on a metal crate and thought for a moment. Because you looked like you needed someone too, he said. And honestly, so did I. He pointed to the ship behind him. I've been trying to fix this old thing for years, he said, chuckling. But it's not just about the ship, it gives me something to do, something that matters. Mira nodded slowly. Her people had also believed in purpose, in work that gave meaning, but Earth had. It only shown her loneliness until now. I want to show you something, Jonah said suddenly. He walked to a corner of the dock and opened a metal door. Inside was a storage room, dark, dusty, and forgotten. But in the center stood something Mira never thought she'd see again. A nurture pod, alien technology, old and rusted with wires hanging loose and lights that no longer glowed. Her breath caught. How did you find this? She asked, stepping closer. Salvaged from an old Syrian ship crash 10 years ago, Jonah said. No one knew what it was. They thought it was a broken cryopod, but I kept it. Mira touched the side of the pod gently. This was once used by her people to raise children when natural birth became impossible. It held the memories of caretakers, the warmth of community, the voice of comfort. It was not a machine, it was a home. I don't know how to fix it, Jonah said, but I thought maybe you'd want to try. Mira turned toward him slowly, her silver eyes shining with emotion. But why? Why are you doing this? Jonah looked at the broken pod, then back at her. Because I don't think the universe made a mistake by sending you here, he said, and maybe the two of us, broken in different ways, can build something whole. Mira looked at the pod again. Her hands moved gently over the surface, fingers tracing the old alien symbols. The pod was cold, quiet, but not dead. It only needed care, and time, and hope. She took a deep breath. I will help you fix it, she said softly. Jonah smiled. Good, he said. Then we start tomorrow. As she walked back home that night, Mira didn't feel invisible anymore. She didn't feel rejected or strange. She felt possible. For the first time, Earth didn't feel like a place she had to survive. It felt like a place where something could grow, maybe not a child yet, but a beginning, and sometimes that's more than enough. Rain tapped on the roof of the dock like soft fingers. Inside, the air was filled with the smell of old metal, burnt circuits, and something else. Hope. Mira stood in front of the broken nurture pod, her hands glowing faintly with alien light. Jonah watched from the side, holding a datapad full of schematics, most of which made no sense to him, but he was trying, and that mattered more than anything else. This part is a memory core, Mira said, lifting a tiny cube. It once held voices, stories, lessons, like a parent's mind. Jonah leaned closer. Can it be repaired? He asked. Maybe, she said, but not with Earth tech. Jonah rubbed his chin. I know a place, he said slowly. An old salvage yard outside the city, run by a guy who owes me a favor. Mira looked surprised. You trust him? Jonah shrugged. No, he said, but I trust you. The next morning they left early. Jonah drove a rusted hover truck through fog and cracked roads. Mira sat quietly beside him, staring at the gray sky. I used to build these pods with my mother, she said suddenly. She believed care could be coded, not just programmed, but felt. Jonah nodded. My dad said something like that once. He built old radios, told me even machines need love to work right. They arrived at the salvage yard by noon. It was chaos, towers of broken drones, melted wires, alien junk from 100 worlds. A bald man with one robotic eye stepped out from a shack. Jonah, he said with a grin, didn't expect to see you with company. Jonah introduced Mira, careful not to say too much. They traded tools, circuits, and an old fusion battery Jonah had saved for years. Mira found what she needed: memory threads, voice storage, emotional core stabilizers. They returned to the dock and began the work. Days passed, and something strange happened. Jonah started to understand bits of Mira's tech, and Mira started to laugh. Not often, not loudly, but enough that Jonah noticed. One night, after hours of quiet repairs, Jonah looked at the pod and said, "Why do you want this so badly?" Mira didn't answer at first. Then she said, "Because it's the only way I'll ever feel like a mother." Jonah didn't speak. not because he didn't know what to say, but because he understood completely. "I want to be someone's father," he said finally. "But I don't want blood or genes, I just want someone to call me home." Mira looked at him, and for the first time she smiled. Fully. Deeply. Maybe not everything in her life was broken, but outside things were changing. A neighbor had seen them unloading alien tech, a message had been sent to someone higher up, and now, two men in black suits sat in a quiet office watching Jonah's old service records and Mira's alien file. "She's Syrian," one man said. "She's not allowed to activate tech on Earth without approval." The other nodded. "And he's helping her." They pressed a button. "Send a warning." Back at the dock, the nurture pod gave a soft chime. Its lights flickered, then glowed. Mira gasped. "It's responding." Jonah stepped closer. A screen lit up with two words, written in Syrian and translated beneath. "Input family structure." Mira touched the panel, her fingers trembling. She selected Guardian 1, Mira, Guardian 2, Jonah. Another chime, then silence. The pod powered down again. It needed more time, more power, more trust. But something had changed. The pod had accepted them. Jonah looked at her. "We're doing this," he said. Mira nodded. "Yes," she replied. "We are." Far away, the warning was already on its way, but they didn't know it yet. They were too busy building something no one believed could exist, something more than a machine, something more than a dream, a family. The message came in the middle of the night, not with sirens, not with soldiers, just a quiet knock. Jonah opened the dock door, still wiping grease from his hands. Two men stood outside in long, dark coats, their eyes sharp like knives. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't need to. One held up a device, flashing red. "You've been flagged for unauthorized alien technology use," he said. The other added, "And you're harboring a non-cleared Syrian refugee." Jonah crossed his arms. "She's not a refugee," he said, calm but firm. "She's my partner." They didn't care. One of them stepped inside without asking, his boots heavy on the old metal floor. He walked straight to the nurture pod, scanned it with a glowing cube, then turned back. "This is illegal tech," he said. "Under Earth Code 47A, mixed species child creation is a restricted act." Mira stood in the shadows, silent. She had seen this before, not these men, but the way power always arrived. Cold, certain, blind. Jonah spoke again, slower this time. "We haven't created anything," he said. "We're just restoring a part of her past." The first man looked at Mira. "You're not allowed to restore the past," he said. "Only follow the rules of the present." Then he left a small metal card on the table. "You'll be contacted," he said. "If you don't shut this down, we'll shut it down for you." They left as quietly as they came, but the air inside the dock felt different now. Heavier. Mira turned to Jonah. "I told you," she said, her voice low. "They'll never let me belong." Jonah didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the card, looked at the official seal, then dropped it into the fire bin without a word. The flames swallowed it in seconds. "We're not stopping," he said. "Not unless you want to." Mira looked at the pod, still half open, humming softly in standby mode. All her life, she had obeyed, owed rules, stayed out of sight. But for once, someone stood beside her, not in front of her, not above her, just with her. "No," she said, "we're not stopping." For the next few days, they worked in silence. They added new memory threads, reconnected the language core, installed emotion sync nodes. Jonah brought in more supplies. Mira programmed lullaby patterns from her childhood. Outside, whispers started to spread. Neighbors asked questions. Why was the alien still here? What were they building? Why did the dock lights stay on all night? One night, a small rock hit the dock window, then another. Mira didn't flinch. Jonah looked out, saw a group of teens running away, laughing. "We're not safe," Mira said. "We're not welcome." But Jonah only looked at the pod, then at her. "They don't have to welcome us," he said, "as long as we protect what we're building." Later that week, a message flashed on their comm screen. It was from the government, short and final. "You have 72 hours to dismantle the device, or we will." Jonah stared at the message. Mira sat beside him, her hand resting on the table, close to his, but not touching. "I'm afraid," she said. "I am too," Jonah replied. But that doesn't mean we stop. They looked at the pod together, its lights pulsing gently like a heartbeat. A message blinked across the screen. System ready for first contact. Mira's hands shook. It was real now. The pod could generate a life form, not born but bonded, a child built from their emotional code, a child who would belong to both worlds. And neither. Jonah turned to her, voice steady. We could run, he said. Find another world, disappear. Mira shook her head. No, she said. If we run, they'll never change. Outside, night fell. Inside, the future waited, glowing inside a machine that was never meant to exist. They had 72 hours to fight, to finish, to choose. The dock was quiet, too quiet. Jonah stood in the center of the room, hands shaking slightly. Mira was across from him, her silver eyes locked on the nurture pod. Neither of them spoke. The screen glowed softly, waiting. First contact initiation. Standby. Mira took a step forward. If we do this, she said, there's no going back. Jonah nodded slowly. I don't want to go back, he said. Do you? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she placed her hand on the pod's surface. Her skin lit up faintly, activating the final protocol. The pod began to hum, not like a machine, but like a heartbeat. Soft lights filled the room, rising in color and warmth. Then a voice, not Mira's, not Jonah's, but something new, gentle. Processing parent imprint. Jonah stepped forward and placed his hand beside hers. The pod glowed brighter, and the air changed, thicker, warmer, alive. Data flowed into the core, drawn from both of them. Not just memories, but emotions, loneliness, hope, fear, love, loss, and dreams they had both locked away. Then came silence. Then came light. The pod opened slowly, like a flower. Inside was not a machine, not exactly a child either, but something between. A small figure, breathing, blinking, eyes still closed. Mira gasped softly. Her hand flew to her mouth. The child had silver patterns on soft skin, human-shaped but touched by alien design. Tiny fingers moved slowly, as if testing the air. Eyes opened, glowing gold, then soft brown. Jonah knelt down. The child looked at him, then at Mira, then reached out both hands. No fear, no questions, just trust. Mira's hands were shaking. I didn't think this would work, she whispered. Jonah smiled through tears he didn't expect. Neither did I, he said. They held the child together. The warmth was real. The weight was real. This was not an experiment. This was not tech. This was theirs. Suddenly, the room's lights flickered. The outer door buzzed. A red message appeared on the wall panel. Security alert. Perimeter breach detected. Jonah stood quickly, holding the child close. They're here, he said. Mira's calm cracked for just a second. We need time, she said. The pod isn't fully stable. The child needs protection. Jonah rushed to the back of the dock, opened a panel behind the tools. Inside was a hidden space, small but shielded. He carefully placed the child inside, wrapped in Mira's scarf. The baby made no sound, just blinked softly. Mira looked in and whispered, We will come back for you, no matter what happens. The outer door slammed open. 2 agents stepped in, weapons raised. They froze when they saw Jonah and Mira, but didn't see the child. Step away from the device, one barked. Jonah raised his hands. There's no device, he said, only us. Mira stood beside him, her voice steady. We haven't broken anything, she said. We've only built something new. The agents searched the room, their scanners beeping, but the hidden chamber remained dark, invisible. They didn't find the child. Not yet. After a tense few minutes, one agent stepped forward. You've got one last chance, he said. Shut it down, or next time, it won't just be a warning. They left without arresting them. Not yet, but the message was clear. The clock was ticking. And now it wasn't just about them. Now there was a child, something living, something they would never give up. That night, Mira and Jonah sat in silence, watching over the sleeping child, wrapped in silence and fear and love, no longer alone, no longer just dreamers. Now, they were parents. It happened just after sunrise. No warning, no time to run. A low hum filled the sky. Black drones hovered above the dock like birds circling prey. Then came the boots. Heavy, loud, uninvited. Mira opened her eyes before they knocked. She knew they were coming. She had felt it all night, in her bones, in her blood, in the silence of the child sleeping beside her. Jonah stood at the door, arms crossed, unarmed, but unshaken. When the knock came, he didn't flinch. He looked at Mira and said only one word. "Ready?" She nodded. Then they opened the door together. 6 armed agents entered the dock, dressed in black, visors down, voices robotic. "By Order 88C," one said, "you are required to surrender the alien subject and any illegal creations in your possession." Jonah stepped forward. "There's no creation," he said. "There's a child." The lead agent scanned the room, eyes pausing on the covered nurture pod. "Hybrid life forms are not authorized on Earth," he said. "They are unstable, unpredictable, and illegal." Mira moved between the pod and the agents. Her voice was quiet but sharp. "Then your law is blind." The room went still. The agents tightened their grips on their weapons. Jonah didn't move. Mira stood her ground, silver skin glowing faintly in the morning light. The child woke quietly in the hidden chamber, small, curious, sensing the fear outside, but not crying, just listening. "We will take the alien into custody for further questioning," the lead agent said. Jonah blocked their path. "You'll have to go through me." The agent raised his hand, not to fire, but to signal. More drones buzzed in above, scanning the dock. Then a new voice cut through the noise. Older, slower, but commanding. "Enough." A woman entered, dressed in gray, eyes tired but alert. She carried a digital file and a badge with gold trim. "Administrator Kale," she said, showing. "Is her ID. I've read the reports, I've seen the footage, I want to hear her speak." The agents hesitated, then stepped back. Kyle looked at Mira. "You have 5 minutes," she said. "Convince me." The dock fell silent. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath. Mira stepped forward, eyes steady. "I came to your world because I believed it was better," she said. "Better than war, better than fear, better than silence." She looked at the pod, then at Kale. "I cannot give birth, but I can give love," she continued. "This child, our child, is not a weapon, not a threat, but a bridge." Kale frowned. "Between what?" Mira stepped closer. "Between what we were and what we could be." There was no anger in her voice, only truth. Jonah took her hand, not out of fear, but pride. They stood side by side, 2 outcasts who had built something beautiful, not from power but from pain. The child stirred again. The chamber was starting to flicker. The pod couldn't hide the signal much longer. Kale noticed the signal but didn't call it out. Instead, she looked at the agents, then at the couple in front of her. Then she said, "You'll come with me." Mira's back straightened. "To prison?" she asked. Kale shook her head. "To speak officially in front of the council." Jonah stepped forward. "Both of us," he said. Kale nodded once. "Both." The agents stood down. The child stayed hidden, safe, for now, but the door had been opened, not just to the outside world, but to something bigger. That night, Mira and Jonah sat in a quiet holding room waiting to be called. They didn't know what would happen next, but they weren't afraid, because fear was no longer stronger than love, and silence was no longer stronger than truth. Tomorrow, the world would hear their story, and maybe, just maybe, the world would finally listen. 10 years later, the dock was quiet again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. The sun rose slowly over the rebuilt district, casting golden light over metal roofs and green vines. Children ran past the old space dock, laughing. Some had human eyes, some had alien skin, some had both. No one stared, no one pointed, no one cared who came from where. Inside the dock, now a learning center, stood a tall young girl with silver-lined skin and warm brown eyes. She was speaking in front of a group of children, telling a story they all knew, but loved to hear again and again. "My name is Erin," she said. "I was born inside a pod, built from memory, from love, and from courage." The children listened with wide eyes. Some sat on the floor, others hovered slightly using soft anti-grav boots. No one moved. No one blinked. "My parents weren't like each other," Erin continued. "One was human, one was Syrian, and everyone told them they couldn't be a family." She paused, looking at a small boy with green skin in the front row. But they didn't listen. Behind her, a large image flickered to life, showing 2 figures, Mira and Jonah, Standing side by side, hands joined, the room went quiet. Even after all these years, their story still held weight. Erin looked at the image and smiled softly. People say family is about blood, she said. But I was made from memories, from loss, from hope, not blood. She turned back to the children. Family is about who stays, who fights for you, who chooses you every single day. A small girl raised her hand. Are they still alive? She asked quietly. Erin's smile didn't fade. No, she said. But they're everywhere. She pointed around the room. They're in the way we care, the way we protect each other, the way we make space for everyone, even if they're different. Outside, a small garden grew where the old warning sign, Jan's once stood. Now it had a simple plaque etched in 2 languages. Mira and Jonah, chosen family, first bridge. People came from all over to see it, not because they were curious, but because they wanted to believe what Mira and Jonah proved, that love could rewrite laws, that care could break through fear, that family could be chosen, not just born. As the lesson ended, Erin stepped outside, walking slowly toward the old pod, still kept in a glass case. She placed her hand on it gently, like her mother once did. A soft hum responded, like it remembered her. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." The wind blew softly through the open dock. Somewhere far above, stars blinked, silent and watching. Not just the stars of Earth, but the stars of Soraya, connected now by choice, by love, by something more than blood.